David Gunn came up with the real reason why graffiti was licked, so to speak, and we beat them. And that real reason was no car could leave the railroad yards if it had any graffiti on it. If at some point graffiti was put on the car, it would have to be withdrawn immediately. And the reasoning was that the only reason that these graffiti writers, or artists if you want to call them, although I don't consider them to be artists, did what they did was so they could see it. And if they didn't see it, they'd stop doing it. So by taking the car out of use immediately, that interrupted the situation to the point where the graffiti writers stopped doing what they did. So he, in my judgment, is the true hero, David Gunn.
And it was all, the graffiti was being done at the yards.
Yeah, that's what we understood, for the most part. The graffiti, I hated it so.
Why'd you hate it so?
Well, when you're in a subway, you're in a city where crime is, a major issue. And then you're down in the subway, it's even more an issue. It's oppressive. And when the whole subway system is covered with graffiti, it, for whatever reason, I don't know, psychologically, it causes you to be very fearful. And in fact, what happened was people stopped using the subway system. There was a huge fall off, and they went to the bus system, where there was a huge increase because they were afraid. And the truth also is that in terms of actual crime, the subway system was safer than the streets. But that's not the way people felt. They felt alone. They felt anxiety, and the graffiti added to it.
But you also did something about the crime.
Oh, yes.
Or let me put it another way, the perception of crime.
Well, we put cops at a certain point on every subway car. I mean, that's very difficult to do. It was so destructive of the city. I mean, they didn't have to be on our trains. They didn't have to be illegally on the buildings, destroying the buildings. We're happy to find spaces for them if they want outdoor spaces. But that's not what they wanted. They wanted to do it secretly, illegally. Look, I did that,
But your feeling was that the impact it had on the public was to
was
scare
awful.
them.
Was frightened the public, and just made the city look terrible, physically terrible. I mean, we asked people to cover up the graffiti that had been put on their buildings the next morning. It was done at night. We try to do that in our buildings. It's very expensive, very expensive, and also it's ruinous of the buildings. I mean, you have different colors on the buildings, but ultimately we won the battle.